There are places on this planet that nobody talks about, but everybody depends on. The Strait of Hormuz is one of them, a ribbon of water in the Middle East. 33 kilometers at its narrowest point, and yet 21% of the world's energy passes through it, every day, without interruption, for decades. This morning, while you check your emails, while someone makes coffee in Seoul or Rotterdam, dozens of supertankers are crossing this corridor, silently, slowly, under constant surveillance. This strait is not a geographic curiosity. It is one of the jugular veins of the global economy, and right now it is beating under tension. We went to see. The first thing that surprises you when you look at the maritime charts of the strait is how narrow the official corridor is. Three kilometers in each direction. That is it. In this zone, vessels move in one direction only, like a two-lane highway suspended above the void. Inbound on one side, outbound on the other. No room to deviate. We all remember that container ship that blocked the Suez Canal in 2021. The world held its breath for 6 days. Here, the corridor is even narrower. And what moves through it is even more critical. When a supertanker navigates these 3 kilometers, it is not piloting a ship. It is piloting an economic decision. One wrong move, one mechanical failure, one misread radio signal, and industries on the other side of the world start calculating their reserves. On March 12, 2026, Washington announced an emergency release of 50 million barrels from the U.S. strategic reserves. Not because of a declared war, not because of a natural disaster, because of what was happening in this 33-kilometer corridor. Iran had triggered what experts call a selective closure. No total shutdown, too visible, too risky. But systematic inspections of vessels from certain countries. Delays, detours, enough to make markets tremble. In Mumbai that evening, restaurants were shutting down their kitchens. Not because war had broken out, because the liquefied natural gas they needed to cook with was no longer arriving at the ports. In Tokyo, gas station prices showed numbers nobody had seen in decades. One straight, 33 kilometers, millions of daily lives reconfigured in hours. That is the power of the Strait of Hormuz. You might think that supertanker captains choose their route, that they steer away from the Iranian coast to avoid tensions, that they navigate with a comfortable safety margin. They cannot. On the southern side of the strait, along the coasts of the UAE and Oman, the seabed is riddled with reefs and shallow banks. A fully loaded supertanker sits 25 meters below the surface. It physically cannot pass on that side. The deep channels, the only ones these giants can navigate without touching the bottom, run along the Iranian coast. The geology of the Gulf made this trajectory inevitable millions of years ago, long before nation-states, long before tensions. The result? Every tanker carrying Saudi oil to Europe passes within range of Iranian surveillance stations, not by political choice, by physical necessity. Geology decided geopolitics. Nobody had a say. There is a situation that repeats itself regularly in the Strait and perfectly captures what it means to work here. A merchant cargo is navigating the corridor. It receives a radio call from a coastal station, Iranian often, asking it to identify itself, declare its destination, confirm its cargo. 30 seconds later, an allied navy, American, British, French, intervenes on the same frequency. It tells the captain he does not have to respond, that the inspection is illegal, that he should continue. The captain is now in the middle of a real-time diplomatic confrontation. Two contradictory orders, a decision to make in seconds, one that could be interpreted as a provocation by either side.
Maritime insurers have raised their premiums for this zone so high that some shipping companies are refusing to send their vessels here, not because a bomb has exploded, because the simple possibility of ending up in that radio conversation has become too expensive.
8 kilometers off the Iranian coast, there is an island that nobody mentions in the news bulletins, Hormuz. Its beach is blood red, not metaphorically, literally. The soil contains such a high concentration of iron oxide that the earth stains everything it touches. And when it rains, which is rare, but it happens, the water running down the slopes carries that red into the sea. The waves turn crimson, the sea bleeds. Videos of this phenomenon have circulated around the world. Millions of people have watched without knowing that this island sits a few kilometers from the most strategically critical oil routes on the planet. The women here wear a golden geometric mask, the burqa, a coastal tradition of southern Iran. They sell red powder at the market. That powder is the earth of their island, used as a spice in sauces, in bread. They literally eat their island. And this island has no fresh water, not a single natural source. Every drop is brought in by boat from the mainland. The island that eats its own earth and drinks the water of others. 2 kilometers from the oil tankers. In 1507, Afonso de Albuquerque landed on Hormuz with a Portuguese fleet. The objective was simple: control the passage between the Indian Ocean and the Persian Gulf, and therefore the spice trade between Asia and Europe. He built a massive fortress, thick walls, watchtowers, a symbol of colonial power. The fort is still there today, but something has happened to it over 5 centuries. Its stones have taken on the color of the island. The iron oxide has slowly infiltrated the walls, the ramparts, the towers. The Portuguese fortress has been absorbed by the landscape it claimed to control. Today, from the sea, you have to look carefully to see where the fort ends and the island begins. The Portuguese held for a century. The Persians expelled them in 1622. The British arrived, the Dutch too, and after them, others still. The island absorbed each one in its own way. Rock has more memory than empires. In 1864, the British Empire needed to connect London to Karachi and Mumbai by telegraph cable. The signal had to cross the Indian Ocean, and a relay station was needed somewhere in the strait. They chose a tiny rock in the Elphinstone Inlet, in the Musandam Peninsula. A rock barely large enough to hold a few buildings. Limestone walls rising on all sides, no shade. Heat regularly exceeding 48 degrees in summer. The British operators sent here to relay the Empire's messages had nowhere to go. No nearby town, no regular boat. Just that rock, that heat, and the monotonous sound of the telegraph. Many lost their minds. The English expression "going round the bend," meaning to go crazy, comes from the long boat journey that wound around the bend of the Musandam Peninsula. To reach this isolated post, a phrase still used today, around the world, by people who have no idea it was born in this strait. The Musandam Peninsula is one of the most spectacular geographies of the strait. Limestone cliffs that plunge directly into emerald water. No roads, no land access. The only way in is by traditional dhow that glides silently between these vertical walls. These are the Arabian fjords. But what is truly extraordinary is at the summit, Jebel Harim, the highest mountain of the peninsula, at 2,000 meters. If you look at the flat stones on the ridges, you see something impossible. Fossil shells, imprints of small fish, coral traces, embedded in limestone 2,000 meters above the sea. This summit was once a seabed. Tectonic plates lifted the bottom of the ocean into the sky over millions of years. These shells existed before the first mountain, before the first tree, before the first land creature. And now from that same summit, you can see oil tankers moving through the strait below. The most ancient geology on Earth watching the most urgent modernity pass by. The name Jebel Harim translates as the Mountain of Women. This is not poetic metaphor, it is historical description. For centuries, when pirates and invaders attacked the coastal villages of the strait, women and children climbed to refuge on these inaccessible ridges. The men stayed below to defend or to flee by sea. The women climbed. The near-vertical limestone cliffs of Musandam served as a natural fortress for generations. No doors to break down, no walls to scale, just rock. Today, the pirates have been replaced by radars and military patrols. But the name has remained, and in some isolated villages of the peninsula, reachable only by boat. The memory of those retreats is still alive, not as a fear, but as a pride. The women who climbed knew the mountain better than anyone. They were the guardians of the summit. The city of Loft on Keshem Island has a problem that today's architects have not yet solved. How to live in heat that regularly exceeds 40 degrees, without electricity, without refrigeration, without air conditioning. The inhabitants found the solution about 1,000 years ago. They built towers. Tall, square stone chimneys rising above the rooftops open on all four sides. These towers catch the slightest breeze at height, where the air is still moving. And channel it downward into the dark and cool rooms below. A passive, natural ventilation system. Inside these houses, at noon, during the worst heat, the temperature remains livable. Not cool in the modern sense, but survivable for 1,000 years, without a single watt of electricity. Contemporary engineers working on sustainable buildings have been studying these towers for decades. They have not yet done better. In the village of Guran, on the Keshem coast, The sound of hammers on wood echoes from the shoreline. This is where they build the Leng, those large traditional wooden boats that have connected this coast to India and East Africa for centuries. Some reach 30 meters in length. There are no plans, no blueprints, no digital models. Not even drawings on paper. The master carpenters build these vessels entirely from memory. The proportions of the hull, the curve of the bow, the angle of the frames, all stored in their heads, passed from father to son, from master to apprentice, for generations. UNESCO has recognized this craft as intangible heritage of humanity. These boats sail, they cross oceans, they withstand storms. A human memory has produced something that naval design software would probably not improve. Memory sometimes is more reliable than a hard drive. At the absolute northern tip of the Musandam Peninsula, the village of Kumzar is reachable only by boat. The limestone cliffs close in behind the small harbor like brackets. No road, no land access. The people of Kumzar speak a language found nowhere else on Earth, Kumzari. A linguist hearing it for the first time would not know how to classify it, because it resembles nothing known. It is ancient Persian mixed with Arabic, with traces of Hindi, Portuguese, and even Old English. Every civilization that has passed through the strait over 2,000 years has left a few words in this language. Indian sailors who stopped for fresh water. Portuguese traders buying provisions. British officers supervising the telegraph cables. Kumzari is the portrait of the strait itself, a mixture of everything that has passed through, deposited in the mouths of the inhabitants of an isolated fishing village. From the rooftops of Kumzar, you can see the oil tankers moving through the shipping lanes a few kilometers away. The residents watch them. They have watched ships cross this passage for 2,000 years. They know better than anyone that the strait belongs to everyone and to no one. Kish Island is what Iran has wanted to show the world for decades. A free trade zone, air-conditioned shopping malls, luxury resorts, white sand beaches. They call it the Dubai of Iran. What the tourist brochures mention less is the strategic position of Kish. The island sits directly on the shipping lanes of the strait. Every tanker entering or leaving the Persian Gulf passes within visual range of its shores. The Kish airport can handle heavy military hardware. So can the deep water port. And behind the five-star hotels, discreet surveillance installations monitor maritime traffic around the clock. There is something almost surreal about this coexistence. Iranian tourists jet skiing in the shallow water. 300-meter oil tankers gliding slowly on the horizon. Music drifting from beach clubs. And somewhere, a radar operator logging the passage of vessel number 847 of the day. Peace and tension occupy exactly the same space. They have simply learned not to look at each other. A few hundred meters off the shore of Kish, there is a wreck, a Greek cargo ship that ran aground in 1966. 59 years later, the rusted hull is still there, half submerged, leaning toward the sea. At sunset, its silhouette cuts against an orange sky. A metal skeleton watching the modern tankers pass. It is an involuntary monument, a quiet reminder of what happens when something jams in this corridor. The Strait of Hormuz existed long before the first civilization that tried to control it. Before the Persians, before the Portuguese, before the Americans, before the drones and the missiles, and it will be here long after the last of those powers has been forgotten. What this strait teaches, if you take the time to truly look at it, is that geography is patient. Empires agitate, markets tremble, captains sweat on their bridge wings, and the current keeps flowing between these limestone walls, as it always has. 21% of the world's energy, 3 kilometers of corridor, millennia of history in the limestone walls, and tonight, somewhere in that darkness, dozens of ships move slowly forward. Loaded, watched, indispensable.